Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley is the new WWE champion. The Miz tried everything he could on Monday night to delay and stall, even bailing at the bell. He grabbed the belt when the bell rang for their match initially. He literally bolted out of the ring. He grabbed the championship and he ran. He made a mad dash like he was trying out for the Olympics. Made a mad dash for the back at 10 p.m. when they tried to do the match. He was fleeing like those viewers usually do once the clock strikes 10 p.m. every Monday night when that third hour hits during this show. That was The Miz on Monday night. But by the end of the night, they did the right thing. And they put the title on Lashley where it belongs. The Miz will go down with the likes now of the Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter as a transitional champion. He served his purpose. The difference is that before he won the title, though, the Sheik was not treated like a jabroni. Before he won the title, Sergeant Slaughter wasn't a comedy geek. That's what The Miz was for much of 2020 into the beginning of 2021. He's probably going to be wrestling Bad Bunny at WrestleMania, so you knew the title was coming off him one way or the other. He never should have had that title in the first place. And you know what I blame for this? This all goes back to Otis winning Money in the Bank. And these people didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They were just week to week trying to figure out where they wanted to go with it, what they wanted to do. It was a joke from the moment that he won it in May of last year. That is what led us to this point. Bobby Lashley should send a thank you note to Otis on the SmackDown brand because it was such a convoluted way to get here. At least we got here, but it was such a convoluted, unnecessary way to get here because these people just never felt like they knew what they wanted to do. But that's over now. Lashley was on the After the Bell podcast with Corey Graves and Vic Joseph. Oh! Vic Joseph, oh! He said that right before, I love this little story he shared. He said right before they came out for the main event, MVP noticed that Lashley was wearing all black on Monday night. Usually he wears black and gold on his gear. And MVP says, no gold tonight? And Lashley just turns to him and says, tonight, we get the gold. When Lashley was in Impact Wrestling, he finally hit his stride. He never really did during his first run in WWE. They tried to push him as a big deal. He was part of the whole Battle of the Billionaires thing at WrestleMania. He was the ECW champion. He had that one pay-per-view WWE title match against John Cena. Might have been that Great American Bash show. I think it was right after the Benoit stuff. So, I mean, it's not as if he wasn't in a high-profile position. They didn't try to push him. But he was very bland. There was really not, personality-wise, there really wasn't much there. He was still very young, very inexperienced. He never really tapped into his full potential during that first run in WWE. But in Impact, years later, he hit on something pushing the MMA stuff. Remember Dan Lambert and American Top Team in his corner. Walking Armageddon. That's the Bobby Lashley that we should have seen when he came back to WWE 3 years ago. There should have been a match in there somewhere. Maybe not right away, but somewhere in there. There should have been a match between Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. There was a period where we kind of had Lesnar fatigue in terms of the people he was wrestling. I remember just, begging them, please give us some new faces for him to get in the ring with. And eventually they did. We got Lesnar and Balor. We got Lesnar and Joe and AJ Styles. And eventually we finally got Lesnar and Daniel Bryan. Took 4 years too late, but we eventually did get the match. But Lashley would have been a fresh face with an MMA background of his own. Maybe not as celebrated as Brock. Maybe not even as good as Brock. Lashley was never a champion in MMA the way Brock was, but Lashley is a tough dude who has a legit background and I think a big guy, and I think it would have made for a big match. If promoted right, big pay-per-view match, would have been a big deal. And it's negligent. It is negligent that they never did that. But last year, one good thing came out of those pandemic-era shows. And that was the Hurt Business. It was MVP coming back to WWE in the Royal Rumble. He was only going to come back at the Rumble. He wrestled Ray and lost the next night on Raw, and that was going to be it. He was going to get a producer tryout. And it turned into what it has turned into, which is him as an on-screen performer and the formation of this new faction on Monday nights called The Hurt Business. And his reunion, MVP's reunion with Bobby Lashley from their days in TNA is part of the Beatdown Clan. That's when things started to turn around for Lashley, and WWE has kept him strong now for months, to the point that it seemed like this guy could be a real option to challenge for the championship against Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. And then they had to go muck things up with all the Money in the Bank stuff, and it was all, like I said, all convoluted unnecessarily. But now he's the champion. And you know what? I disagree with people who say you can't do Lashley and McIntyre at WrestleMania one-on-one because it's not a WrestleMania-worthy match. Oh, it's not a WrestleMania-caliber match. All right, maybe 5 years ago it wouldn't have been a WrestleMania-caliber match. I say it is. I say right now the way that they have pushed Lashley and largely kept McIntyre strong. I think they've definitely botched things up a bit with Drew McIntyre. Taking the title off him, putting it back, taking it off him again. I don't know what their plans are with him right now. I have to assume he's going to Mania to challenge for the title, but nothing is clear at this point. But I say it is. I disagree with those people. I think Lashley and McIntyre one-on-one, if that's what the match ends up being, is absolutely a fine match for them to go ahead and do on one of those two nights at WrestleMania. Although, if they did negotiate to bring Brock Lesnar back, and they wanted to make it a triple threat match for the championship, I would not be against it. I am not usually a fan of the multi-man main event title matches at WrestleMania, but that is a triple threat that I could get behind, because I think it would be a hell of a match. And it would be a way to get Lashley and Lesnar in the ring together for the first time. But they have finally gotten Lashley to the point that he should have been 3 years ago when he first came back. They gave the match away on Monday night also between Drew McIntyre and Sheamus instead of waiting until Fastlane without even promoting it, which is just completely mind-boggling to me. It's not, at this point, I'm not really shocked when they give away these pay-per-view matches on TV, but when they do it without even promoting it in advance, you just tune in. It's like, oh, tonight we're going to do McIntyre and Sheamus. We're going to go to a commercial, come back, and just give the match away. It's like, what? What? But I guess in their mind, it didn't matter because the main hook for the show on Monday night was all about the title. It was all about Lashley and The Miz, in which case, why did you need to even give away Drew and Sheamus instead of just waiting until Fastlane? Unless they did this because they just want to do the rematch, which I assume they're going to do, on the 21st. They had a great match. The match itself, I have no complaints. They had a great match. McIntyre won clean with a Claymore kick. If Sheamus wants one more match, I say rematch them at the next pay-per-view with the winner challenging Lashley at WrestleMania. I don't think Lashley needs to defend the title at Fastlane. Everybody's trying to figure out what's Lashley going to do. Is it going to be a rematch with The Miz? No. They should have an order of protection taken out, a restraining order against The Miz being within 50 feet of that championship. There is no need for a rematch. There is no need for Lashley to defend the title before WrestleMania. He does not have to defend on this pay-per-view. You've already got yourself a Universal title match because the challenger for the Universal title at WrestleMania, because Edge won the Rumble, has already been established. That is not the case on the Raw brand, so instead, on the Raw side, you don't have a title match, you have a match to determine who is going to go to WrestleMania to defend, or to challenge, rather, for the other title. So I don't believe that Lashley even needs to defend the title at Fastlane. I just think it's unnecessary. Now, according to Meltzer, Vince McMahon decided this week, because of course he did, that WrestleMania needs to be bigger. Bigger, damn it. It's got to be bigger. And he may blow up some of their original plans for the show. You know those original plans from 3 weeks ago? That's about as far back as their original plans go. Although I take that back. They probably had a good plan 6 weeks ago for Bad Bunny. Aside from that, I'm not convinced they had anything solid for what is supposed to be their biggest show of the year. So when I read that, I laughed. Blow up their original plan. What original plans? What original plans? What do you mean by original? I hear original. I think, they're going back to what? October, November, December? They're going back to probably the beginning of the month. End of January at best. But whatever plans they have, apparently he may blow them up this week. Writers and producers, they're waiting for it. They're waiting for him to blow up the card because he's not happy. This is pathetic. We are a month out. We are 4 weeks out from their biggest show of the year. How do you not have your top 4, 5 matches already set in stone? A few of them are. Unless he goes ahead and blows them all up. Now you're worried that it's not big enough 4 weeks out? Is he sweating because of the Peacock deal? He doesn't think that it's a worthy enough WrestleMania because they want to do something big for the Peacock move? What have you been doing for the last 2 months? Scratching your ass? The match should be Drew against Lashley. Or a 3-way with Lesnar if they can bring him in, assuming he's not the big AEW name that we have on the pay-per-view tonight. One of those two. That's the match at WrestleMania. But when Miz was forced to come back out at the end of the show to face Lashley in a lumberjack match, it was a satisfying conclusion to what could have been just another bait and switch to delay things until Fastlane. The end result would have been the same either way. There was no way that you could let Miz go into WrestleMania as the champion, as your world champion. Lashley against McIntyre, if that is the match, like I said before, absolutely fine with that being the Raw main event. Because Bobby Lashley has something that very few people on that Raw roster have at the moment, and that's credibility. Which is hard to come by these days on Raw or SmackDown. He's got credibility. One of my favorite parts of this whole show-long chase that we saw on Monday night is after The Miz ran away at 10 p.m., Lashley and MVP, they were in the back with Shane McMahon. And MVP said, "This is bullshit." Shane said, "Look, I'm going to consider stripping Miz of the championship and giving the title to Lashley." And Lashley says, "I would rather find Miz so I can beat the piss out of him." Just the way he said it. He looked like he was ready to tear this man limb from limb. Walking Armageddon. That's the Lashley I want to see. And that's somebody I can get behind as champion.